All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack an ancient, seriously action-packed text from the epic Mahabharata. And look, this is way more than just some old mythological story. It's a brilliant, timeless case study on jealousy, hubris, and honestly, the absolute power of setting strict boundaries. We're talking about a tale of two brothers who literally conquered the universe, only to be completely undone by the one thing they couldn't control, themselves.
So, it brings up this fascinating question. What actually happens when you conquer the world, but you can't conquer your own jealousy? That is the core question at the heart of our source material today. It perfectly illustrates how our own unchecked human nature can completely destroy even the strongest, most powerful bonds. We so often think that reaching the absolute pinnacle of success, wealth, or power is going to bring us lasting peace. But, as this ancient text reveals, it often just strips away the everyday distractions that keep our deepest, most destructive impulses in check.
Section 1. The Unrivaled Asura Brothers. Let's dive right into this by looking at the incredible rise and the very sudden complacency of two mighty Asura brothers, Sunda and Upasunda.
According to the text, these guys were just an absolute force of nature. They had successfully subjugated the entire earth, bringing all three worlds under their equal sway. So, having claimed literally all the treasures of the gods, the Gandharvas, and the kings of the earth, the brothers suddenly found themselves without a single rival left anywhere. And what did they do with this ultimate sweeping victory? Well, they entirely gave up all exertion. They basically felt they had absolutely nothing left to do.
Believing their struggles were permanently over, they retreated to this perfectly level, stony, and blossoming tableland in the Vindhya range. The text notes that they devoted their days purely to pleasure and merriment, living just like the celestials. They surrendered entirely to women, perfumes, floral wreaths, and wine. They were completely unguarded, just lounging around in a paradise of their own making, heavily intoxicated and deeply, deeply complacent.
Section 2. The Arrival of Tilottama. Let's see what happens when their highly vulnerable, drunken complacency is suddenly put to the test by a maiden named Tilottama. Picture the scene. The brothers are heavily intoxicated, they're enjoying music and chants in their own praise, and then Tilottama slowly approaches. The text describes her as being attired in just a single piece of red silk that exposes all her charms, casually plucking wildflowers as she walks. As she steps into their blossoming tableland, the deeply intoxicated Asuras are instantly, and I mean instantly, smitten by her transcendent beauty.
But this brilliantly illustrates that their reaction wasn't just about some sudden infatuation. It was a deadly psychological cocktail. The source material is super specific here, explicitly listing that they were intoxicated with the boons they had obtained, intoxicated with their massive physical might, intoxicated by all that hoarded wealth from every quarter, and of course, heavily intoxicated by the wine they had been drinking. Maddened by all of this at once, they were entirely deprived of reason by their passion. It was just a total, catastrophic collapse of self-control.
Section 3. A deadly sibling rivalry. So completely deprived of reason, the once united brothers both rush forward to claim the maiden for themselves. Sunda makes the first move, aggressively grabbing her right hand. And right here is where a lifetime of affection just shatters. Sunda fiercely stakes his claim over his brother, looking at Upasunda with this contracted brow of anger, and declares with absolute, arrogant authority, "She is my wife, and therefore your superior." Just like that, in a matter of seconds, decades of brotherhood and world-conquering unity evaporate in the face of ego and desire.
But Upasunda isn't backing down. He instantly fires back with his own furious claim, "She is my wife, and therefore your sister-in-law." Each of them keeps screaming, "She is mine, not yours." The text tells us they completely forgot their love for one another in that moment. Stripped of all reason, both brothers take up their fierce maces to settle the dispute the only way their intoxicated, power-hungry minds know how. Yelling, "I was the first, no, I was the first," they violently strike each other with their massive maces. And because they are so equally matched in their incredible might, the blow is instantly fatal to them both. They fall dead upon the ground in a pool of blood. The text actually uses this stunning imagery here, describing their fall like two suns dislodged from the firmament. It's wild. The invincible conquerors of the three worlds, utterly destroyed in a matter of minutes by their own unchecked desires.
As all the onlookers flee to the nether regions in sheer terror at this cosmic tragedy, the supreme deity, the grandsire of all creatures, arrives on the scene. He applauds Tilottama and rewards her with a truly spectacular boon, a splendor so great that nobody will ever be able to look at her for any length of time. She is then elevated to roam in the region of the Adityas, having acted as the ultimate catalyst that broke the unstoppable Asura threat.
Section 4. Narada's Cautionary Warning. Now, what's really fascinating here is that this entire blood-soaked myth wasn't just being shared as ancient history. It was actually being recounted in real time as a direct warning by the great celestial sage Narada.
Narada is using this extreme story as a cautionary presentation for the illustrious Pandavas. If you aren't familiar with them, the 5 Pandava brothers are currently navigating a highly complex polyandrous marriage where they all share one wife, Draupadi. So, Narada is essentially holding up a mirror. On one hand, you have united brothers who destroyed each other over a woman, and on the other, you have the Pandavas who are equally powerful but are currently in a situation perfectly ripe for exactly that kind of devastating, world-ending jealousy.
Because Narada is acting from a place of deep affection for them, he explicitly commands the foremost ones of Bharata's line to proactively arrange rules. He warns them, do not rely merely on your brotherly love. You have to create structural arrangements so you do not repeat the fatal, impulsive mistakes of the Asura brothers.
Section 5. The Ultimate Boundary Rule. The truly crucial point is how the Pandavas digest this cautionary tale and immediately implement a strict, highly practical solution. They don't just sit around and say, oh, we promise to be good. No, they take massive action.
Consulting with one another right there in front of the celestial rishi, they establish an ironclad rule regarding privacy and their shared wife. The trigger for the rule is incredibly simple and completely objective. If one of the brothers is sitting with Draupadi, and any of the other 4 happens to walk in and see them together,
The intruder must face a massive consequence. There is no trial, no saying, hey, it was an accident, and absolutely no apologies accepted. The brother who walks in must face a mandatory 12-year retirement into the forest. That is an enormous, life-altering penalty, designed specifically to enforce absolute respect and hyper-awareness of the boundary.
And it gets even more intense. During this brutal 12-year exile, it's not like it's just a relaxing vacation in the woods. The offending brother must pass his days strictly as a Brahmacharin. This means actively stripping away all comforts, all wealth, and all power, and living under a strict vow of celibacy, extreme discipline, and humble studenthood. It is the ultimate ego check, directly countering the exact kind of hubris that killed the Asuras. But here is the thing. Because they respected human nature enough to set these massive boundaries, the plan works perfectly. Narada is deeply gratified by their wisdom and departs. And the text notes incredibly clearly that because of this specific rule established amongst themselves in regard to their common wife, no dispute ever arose between the Pandava brothers again.
Which leads us with a really powerful takeaway as we wrap up this explainer. This ancient text forces us to ask ourselves, are you relying purely on affection and good intentions to maintain your most critical relationships? Or, like the Pandavas, have you built the necessary, practical boundaries to protect them from the inevitable flaws of human nature? It's a fascinating look at how structure, and not just love, is what truly guarantees peace. So what boundaries do you need to start setting today?